Jai Shri Radhe. Today is day 37 of our readings of the stories, the biographies of the 252 Vaishnava disciples of Sri Gosaiji. So Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna. Rupa Chandana, Varta, Part 1. One day, Rupa Chandana went to Gokul to have Sri Gosaiji's sight. Rupa Chandana then met Raghudas, a Gujarati Brahmin who had studied the Sri Subodhiniji with Sri Gosaiji. Raghudas always stayed in Gokul with Sri Gosaiji. One day, Raghudas thought, Chacha Harivamsa has not studied anything, but he travels around and gathers lots of donations for Sri Gosaiji. If Sri Gosaiji gave me that job, I could collect lots more funds. Sri Gosaiji is the inner witness of the heart, and he knew what Raghudas had been thinking. At that very moment, Sri Gosaiji got up to wash his hands and feet and passed by where Raghudas was standing, saying, Hypocrisy is rife in the world, therefore Sri Krishna is my only refuge. At that time, Rupa Chandananda, Raghudas, and quite a few other Vaishnavas were standing there. Rupa Chandananda asked Paramananda Soni why Sri Gosaiji had quoted that verse. Paramananda Soni replied, Sri Gosaiji must have said this as a comment on the times we are living in. Rupa Chandananda thought to himself that Paramananda Soni had not really understood the true purport. The two of them began to discuss it, and then Raghudas came and stood there. Rupa Chandananda thought, he probably understands the reason for that comment. Afterwards, when Sri Gosaiji was about to take rest after his meals, Rupa Chandananda asked him, Oh Maharaj, who were you talking about? Who were you talking about when you made that comment earlier? Sri Gosaiji replied, Oh Rupa Chandananda, did you not understand? He replied, Mo Maharaj, you are the Lord himself. How can an embodied soul possibly grasp the depth of your teachings? Sri Gosaiji was pleased and explained, Raghudas began to be proud of his worthiness. However, what he has not understood is that Vaishnavas who make donations do not make them for Harivamsaji's sake, but rather because they are accomplished Vaishnavas. They do not consider any other reason. Rupa Chandananda asked again, O Maharaj, at that time a similar thought had crossed my mind, that you made the comment for Raghudas's sake, but I was not sure. Now you have explained it to me. Sri Gosaiji graced Rupa Chandananda in this way with his teaching. Bhav Prakash, this story explains that in the same way that pride of wealth or power obstruct devotion, so pride of one's knowledge is also damaging. A Vaishnava should always avoid egotism because self-importance destroys the Vaishnava path. Part 2. Once Sri Gosaiji travelled to Agra on his chariot. They stopped at Rupa Chandananda's house, and Sri Gosaiji sent his personal servant in to see if Rupa Chandananda was at home. He went inside and inquired, but found that he was not at home at that time, and hearing this, Sri Gosaiji travelled on. Bhav Prakash, the reason what Rupa Chandananda's wife and other family members were not divine souls, therefore Sri Gosaiji did not stop there. Part 2 continued. Sri Gosaiji travelled on to Bhana Kapoor's house. When he arrived, Sri Gosaiji took off his outer clothes, tied his scarf round his head, put his sacred thread over his ear, and went into the courtyard in order to wash his hands and feet. At this time, Rupa Chandananda was in another town, but when he heard that Sri Gosaiji had arrived, he returned as fast as he could. There were a lot of people gathered at Bhanu Kapoor's door. Rupa Chandananda went in, but he was only able to have Sri Gosaiji's sight from afar. And so, he went home. Bhav Prakash. Why? His disposition was Rajasi, and so he thought, if he considers me as his own, he will come to my home. Therefore he had Sri Gosaiji's sight from afar and then went home. Part 2 continued. Sri Gosaiji also saw Rupa Chandananda from afar, and he followed him to his house. Rupa Chandananda was so happy. Sri Gosaiji washed his hands and feet and took a bath, cooked, made the offerings, accepted the prasad, and then took rest. Afterwards, Sri Gosaiji asked Rupa Chandananda why he had left after espying him and bowing down, and said, I have come to your house without your calling me. I followed you here. Why did you do this? Please explain to me. Rupa Chandananda submitted, O Maharaj, my home is your home, so why did you go somewhere else? Sri Gosaiji replied, I did go to your house, but I found that you were not there. Therefore I came to this house. Rupa Chandananda said, O Maharaji, I was not there, but my house had not gone anywhere. Hearing this, Sri Gosaiji made no comment. The Vaishnavas gathered at Bhanu Kapoor's house began to worry why Sri Gosaiji was taking such a long time. Someone said, Sri Gosaiji has partaken of prasad and is having a rest at Rupa Chandananda's house. All the entourage then brought all Sri Gosaji's luggage to Rupa Chandananda's house. Sri Gosaji stayed there for a few days. He then left and returned to Gokul. Sri Gosaji thus showered his grace on Rupa Chandananda. Part 3. Another time when Sri Gosaji was visiting Rupa Chandananda, he was sitting on his cushioned couch. A thought came into his mind. It would be so good to have an exceptional horse of a certain colour, have it decked out in velvet of a certain colour, and then ride it to Srinathadwara. Rupa Chandananda was in the market at that time. By the Lord's grace, Rupa Chandananda knew Sri Gosaji's mind, and he bought a horse of that very description. He adorned it exactly as Sri Gosaji had imagined. Then he held the reins and led it home, carrying a riding crop, and he stood there. Rupa Chandananda then called out to Sri Gosaji, "Your horse is ready." Seeing the horse, Sri Gosaji was immensely pleased. He immediately mounted it and rode to Srinathadwara to have the holy sight of the Lord. Thus concludes the story of Rupa Chandananda, a very close disciple of Sri Gosaji and a recipient of his great grace. He knew Sri Gosaji's mind, and he was an accomplished Vaishnava, and really there is no end to his story. Varta 18, the story of Madhavdas Kayastha, who lived in Saharanapur. Bhav Prakash. Madhavdas is a devotee of Sattvic disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Sarasini. She manifests from Indulekha and is thus a form of her divine, loving sentiment. Madhavdas was born into a wealthy Kayastha family, of which he was the only child. His parents were very attached to him. When he was 18, he went to Delhi for some work, and Sri Gosaji was in Delhi at that time. He used to go to the Nigambodh Ghat for his prayers and bathing. One day, Madhavdas also came to Nigambodh Ghat to bathe. He caught sight of Sri Gosaji. He felt astonished, because he was effulgent like the Lord. Sri Gosaji also gracefully looked in Madhavdas's direction. Madhavdas requested Sri Gosaji to make him a disciple. Sri Gosaji asked him who he was and where he lived. Madhavdas replied, "O Maharaj, I am from a Kayastha family and live in Saharanapur. It is your great grace that I have had your holy sight today. Please quickly take me as your disciple. Up till now my life has been wasted by not knowing you. Please bless me soon." Seeing his intense ardour, Sri Gosaji got him to bathe and then initiated him with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandh. Madhavdas then asked him, "Now what are my duties?" Sri Gosaji told him all about the ways of the path and instructed him to make Seva to the Lord. Madhavdas asked, "My parents are at home and they worship Shiva, so how might I serve the Lord there?" Sri Gosaji said, "You should cook by yourself and mentally make the offerings to the Lord. Eat only that prasad. Do not eat from anyone else's hand. Then your way will become evident for that." Sri Gosaji blessed Madhavdas in this way, and Madhavdas then took permission from Sri Gosaji and returned home to Saharanapur. We conclude here today's reading, and we'll resume again tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe. Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.